Hello again, Struckweb. Today I'll be bringing you a build for the Dusk Mage class in Torchlight Frontiers. I've decided to call this build the Blast and the Furious due to the Radiant Blast and the Holy Fury skills that the build is using. I've also included Dark Spears, Consecration, Luminous Run and Entropy. Dark Spears and Entropy can help us fill the white bar for extra mana regen, which would help not run out of mana for Holy Fury. And on top of this we have extra damage from Consecration together with some extra damage dealing skill and knockback utility from Radiant Blast. With enough Luminous Run the build can achieve 100% uptime for the skill, which would greatly help you speed through the maps. And in general the build is pretty nice and solid. It's better than I expected and it's kind of a successor to my Beamer Melter setup from update 6. It is the first time I've tried maxed out Radiant Blast. I didn't have the opportunity to try it before, but now with the specs that Extra have been giving us, I had some chance to play around with a setup that includes a maxed out Radiant Blast. I've seen some very nice damage numbers. I think I once even one-shot a yellow monster while I had the damage shrine with Radiant Blast, so that's something to keep in mind. It's not a skill that you'll be using as the main thing about the build, but it's pretty solid damage when there's enemies around you, especially during elite fights like this one. It does help a lot with the damage, it does help pull some enemies like close range monsters away from you, and then you can just beam away and spam some entropy. It's very nice to weave in entropy in between the beaming, so entropy beam, kind of this rotation. And Dark Spears can be placed before you start your damage on enemies that are spawning or have just spawned. It could keep ticking, and in multiple enemies it will fill your white bar very fast, so you should not be having any troubles with the mana with this build the way I've set it up. So since this build is about Holy Fury and Radiant Blast, I wanted to include those two skills into the same build to see how it will work. It is mostly putting points into the skills from the light skills part. I've maxed out Holy Bolt only to get some extra damage for Entropy, but alternatively if you don't want to use Entropy you cannot blast it. Luminous Run we maxed it out for max cooldown. Hopefully you can even get it without cooldown for getting some gear items with Luminous cooldown reduction. Holy Fury maxed out, Radiant Blast maxed out for that damage, then Consecration maxed out to give us extra boost and our allies. Here I maxed Unholy Bolt of course for white skills damage, maxing out Entropy for white skills cooldowns, and since it's maxed out why not use it while we are channeling, and then Dark Spears for white skills mana cost. It's a very good combo for Holy Fury. So you can do something like this: Dark Spears to slow the enemy, Entropy, and let me just do it again. Dark Spears. How to spend, and when anything comes closer, bam, you do a Radiant Blast to get them away from you. If anything even reaches you. So Radiant Blast does a lot of damage when maxed out, and it won't be a bad choice. It's kind of a lackluster skill currently in the game, but many things are getting reworked. All classes are getting some extra skills. Some of those question marks would be added soon, probably with update 8. So for now I think it's worth it if you want something different, something that not everyone is playing. Holy Fury and Radiant Blast give this build a nice way to stand out. You have 4 points available here that you can decide whether you want Dark Skill buff duration, White bar charge gain, or you want Dark bar charge gain. So I'm leaving those 4 points unspent just so people can decide where to spend them. The relic weapon I decided to go for is the Bane, but it's not the the only weapon that works for this build. This build would work with any weapon, and the way I've set up the skills, it would be best to not put any points into the active skill bar skill. So Venomous Maw, Spinning Blade and Sword Smash should not be leveled. Ideally you would max out the Spiderlings, so 20 points goes into the 8-legged allies. Then I would suggest increase the chance to fire passive poison missiles maxed out another 10 points. That gives you 30. And this means you need to spend probably around 10 points or something in here so you could be able to unlock this. So if you go for extra crit chance, that's not bad, but if you whack the poison chance, you can also go for this. So either 10 points here, 10 points here, or 5 plus 5, or whatever mixture you want to go for. So this gives you 10 points so you can unlock those skills. Then you spend 10 points in this one, and then you spend 20 points in this one. If you don't think you need that much chance for spread of death, you can do some sort of balance like 5 points here, 5 points here, or just get 10 points in deadlier boats. Experiment, see what works best for you. And the same setup with points would be worth it on any other weapon. So I can quickly go through the other weapons just to give you some examples of how you could go on about leveling those. So if I were to take this one, then here again 10 points for the butt pulls. But here with the blood weapon, with the blood drinker, I would strongly suggest maxing out rupture. 10 points in both places in rupture, and 10 points maybe 10 points maybe for the chance to bleed, or 5 point chance to bleed, and 5 points healing. This allows you to unlock this. So if you're spending 10 points here, 20 points here, then you can probably do something like either 5-5 or just 10 points here, or alternatively 20 points in Blood Frenzy, 20 points in Rupture. This is good enough, and it would also be an amazing addition to this build. So let me quickly go for a Flaming Destroyer setup explanation. So for a Flaming Destroyer setup, I currently don't have the maxed out one in this character. For Flaming Destroyer setup, as you see here, I've got the maxed cooldown for Sword Smash, but you won't need that. But you will need to gain 10 points in Empowering Smash, which is either 5-5 or maybe 10 in the Ignition Source, depending on how much crit chance you need. Decide for yourself whether you want 10 points here, 10 points here, or 5-5 or other combo. As long as you have 10 points or 20 points in Empowering Smash, you're gonna be fine. I would suggest 10 points in this. Then I would suggest 20 points in this, which means you would need to put 10 points in Magma Burst. So 10 points here, 10 points here, 20 points here. I wouldn't suggest going for Fear, so I would suggest 10 points in Lingering Blaze. So my ideal setup would be 5-5, 10, 10, 10. But if you don't need the crit chance, just go for 10, 10, and here maxed out on both of those. So those are three different relic weapons that you could use with their own setups. Think about what you might like. I'm currently using a poison weapon and no element offhand, mostly because of the crit chance, crit damage, and crit chance from those things, so I can get a nice 53 crit chance with my pet buffs and 261 crit damage. From the pet skills, I always say in my build videos that my preferred combination is Deadliest Strikes together with Screeching Stun, Healing Friendship and Battle Cry. But if you really have shit tons of crit chance, you can afford to go for something like Running Partner or even Increased Awareness or Defender. You could even use running partner on trash mobs, and then when you reach bosses, swap out with deadlier strikes for the boss fight. There is no limit how and when you can swap those queues, so you can swap while doing a map. Of course, if you don't have Healing Friendship and Screeching Stun, use whatever you've got. Even at the moment I'm using Defensive Posture and Battle Cry, because I don't have the means to use Battle Cry, Screeching Stun and Healing Friendship. In regards to the gear, I would suggest, depending on what relic weapon you pick, try to get a weapon that gives you nice bonuses like crit chance, crit damage, and if you can't get those bonuses, of course, go for something, either weapon or offhand, that gives you chance to, and if you're with the bleeding weapon, bleeding, if you're with the poison weapon, poison, if you're with the fire weapon, fire. Try to get at least one of those two. If you can afford it, get one weapon with the element for the relic weapon and then one with a chance to shock and both fired on shock and stuff like that. This will go very well with this setup. Items with a chance to summon a certain ally, whether it's on critical hit or on block chance and stuff like that, are also nice. So if you have a shield that summons allies or a weapon that summons allies, you can try and use it. It could help because they will be summoned between you and the monsters, and the build kinda relies on the monsters not reaching you, and if they reach you, then there's a Radiant Blast. Chance to poison is nice if you're poisoning. Of course, that might mean you have to sacrifice some gear luck. Here you want stuff with energy cost for Holy Fury, and you want stuff with damage to Entropy. So if you stack a lot of this, you would be able to spam Holy Fury and do a lot of damage with Entropy. And then of course there's stuff with not flat but percent health and crit chance and crit damage. Try to find a balance between crit damage and crit chance, one that you crit often enough but get high enough crits. Flat damage is also a good bonus, so some examples that are good. This is good, this is nice. Chance to gain burn proof on hit and HP. I haven't seen this work, so I kind of stopped wearing this. Then there's this one, standard armor from the old era when we couldn't get crit damage and crit chance. So this is 2 times the HP and 1 time the flat damage. Then there's boots like those, chance to increase movement speed by 10% for 3 seconds on kill. Very good for speed running. And stuff like this, faster cooldown for Luminous Run would allow you to just keep Luminous Run 100% of the time up. Currently I think I have like 0.4 seconds or so. Let's see. Yeah, I think 0.5 seconds, but if I equip those gauntlets, this would be changed and it would be spammable. So mix and match your gear, try to combine two elements as I said if you can. If you are not combining two elements, at least go for something that gives you good mana again and crit hit chance and crit hit damage and flat damage. So there's other stuff like faster cooldown for dark spears. So if I were to equip those three items, that would give me another 30% and over of cooldown for dark spears, and you can see those boots give me luminous run cooldown and dark spears, so just try to get stuff that gives you bonuses for the items you're wearing. Another good chest piece would be something like this. It gives you percent HP and it is crit damage and crit damage. This I found on an out as level 29. Actually I found it with this guy on level 29 zone. So if you find something like this at level 29 or 20, it will last you all the way to 50 without being a bad item. Because there isn't a single stat on it that is scaling with levels. So another thing, poison duration, not a bad thing to go for. But yeah, decide what weapon you want to use, what element you want to use as a relic weapon. And then move some things around in your gear, change some stuff to match your relic weapon. For the pet items, I prefer to go for something like a Bloodlust tag. It gives crit chance and crit damage together with a nice amount of chance to bleed. So that way if I'm using poison or fire or shock, I can just get bleeding from the pet and I can stack all different elements. It's nice, it's good, and it gives you very high damage for the pet due to the crit chance and crit damage. On the cover I try to go for something with chance to block. It's better than some extra damage in my opinion, so even if it's lower level, having the pet be able to block is very helpful. Playing the build is not difficult at all. It's as I've said in the intro. You can start by either doing consecration and starting with your damage, or maybe even doing some dark spears to tick on the enemies, slow them, and then spam your beam, do entropy, spam your beam, do entropy, or you can even start leading with entropy, which I normally do. So it's kind of this rotation between entropy and beaming. Of course you can just stick to beaming if you don't want to use entropy or if you don't really need that extra damage. But it is there if you need it, especially on bosses. It would greatly help you using entropy or on elites. And keep in mind consecration of course always gives you damage boost regardless of the build. Luminous Run is always useful regardless of the build for speeding through the maps. I've managed to get some gear as you saw in the gear segment that gives me extra mana cost reduction for Holy Fury and extra damage for Entropy, so it's a good synergy with the build. But if you wanna go for Dark Spear spamming, you can get gear for that. You can reach a very nice cooldown with Dark Spears if you stack gear for it, but even if you don't stack gear for it, you can still have multiple instances of the skill up at the same time. It does stack its slowing up to 80% together with the slowing from Holy Fury, and this is the slow cap. You can't slow an enemy more than 80% slow, and this build can achieve it with just those two skills, Holy Fury and Dark Spears. Basically the build I thought would not be on par with Spike build with Energy Spike or with a build centered around majorly Entropy. So even if you don't use the Entropy, the build can still stand its ground to other mage builds. Maybe not as effective, but it's still effective enough to not be a bad build. It is also something different than my other builds in regards to the skills that are used. It's predominantly wide skills oriented, which in a way makes it stand out from the rest. Thanks for watching this video, folks. If you've enjoyed it, you can let me know by hitting that button, and if you want to be notified for future content that I'm uploading, you can hit the subscribe button as well. For more Torchlight Frontiers content, you can check the different playlists I have for builds for each of the classes, and in the description below this video you can find links to my Twitch, Twitter, Mixer and Facebook pages. You can also see those at the end of this video in the final sequence. Thank you again for watching this video and keep it cool, folks. Until next time.